السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. Welcome everyone. This is our third week studying Surah Yasin. We have been going through sort of the introduction part. Still we are within the first 12 verses, which is establishing the background for the chapter. Inshallah, I will again make a quick pass from the initial verses, and we will focus on verses 11 and 12 today. And if the time remains, we will make an introduction to the next verses, which is like a metaphor, a parable that Quran brings to strengthen the main point that is trying to be made in here. So quickly, I start from the first verse. If you have any comments, questions, please feel free to chime in. Okay. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yasin wal Quran al-Hakim. And while I'm going to go through the initial verses, my purpose this time, my focus is going to be on understanding the main theme of the chapter, because let this week's discussion with the previous 2 weeks' discussion to set the background for the rest of the chapter. So when we were discussing the first verse, Yasin, we said one of the interpretations for this one is, "O you human being, O man," ya insan, sort of. And we were reading this chapter again in two different ways. One is as it is being addressed to the prophet, and me taking it as prophet being the first addressee. Second, it addressing me directly. So we were making this parallel read for the chapter so far. And I will try to make the summary taking this perspective into account again. So Yasin, O you human being, wal Quran al-Hakim, consider this Quran full of wisdom. Innaka lamina al-mursalin, indeed, verily, you are among God's message bearers. So in here, the second verse was attracting our attention to the wisdom that is being presented to us in Quran, and then this was being used as a witness or as an evidence for some certain claim, a claim which the verse number 3 says is so certain, is that indeed you are among God's message bearers, among messengers. So we were taking this third verse as, again, in two ways, as it refers to the Prophet Muhammad والسلام, him being a messenger, and this messengerhood being so certain. And the second one, me as a human, being this message bearer. So in this case, being Lamin al-Mursalin can be taken as you are sent as a message bearer. So in here we were taking it as there is a definitive purpose. You are sent. It's not that you are randomly there. It's not that you happen to be in here, but rather you are sent. And in today's discussion, when we are going to study verses 11 and 12, again, we will come back to this point of you being sent. Because when somebody is sent with a certain message, that means this is within a plan, within a wisdom. It's not random. And verse number 2 was talking about Quran as a source of wisdom. And since this is something that we already observe in the existence, the creator of this existence must be wise if we consider the order within the universe. And if Quran is speech of God, then it must be full of wisdom as well. And when I go and check with Quran, I see that it is full of wisdom. So it's like a confirmation. It's not simply a claim. Verse number 2 is not a claim. It's something that I can easily verify. And now verse number 3, building on top of verse number 2, says that as certain as you can be that Quran is full of wisdom, you can also confirm that actually both Muhammad ﷺ is the messenger of God, and also as a human, you are sent with messages. Don't take yourself as like a speaking animal, which ended up just happened to exist within that order after billions of years of random progress, but rather you are sent purposefully to that very existence. And then comes ala sirat mustaqim, so pursuing a straight path. When we were discussing this, again, if we take it as this verse addressing Prophet Muhammad والسلام, in the first place, the path that he follows, that he was put onto, is an exemplary path, which is straight in terms of making sense of this existence. Why am I in here? Why am I sent to this existence? Where am I going to? What is my purpose in this existence? These are all very relevant and most fundamental questions that a human can ask and shall ask, actually. And humanity had been asking those questions for thousands of years. And if you consider all the thinkers, these are the questions that those people are trying to crack over thousands of years. So the message that the Prophet ﷺ brings is actually giving us the straightest path, or the shortest and most convincing answer to make sense of why am I here? Where am I going to? Why is there death? These sort of questions. So ala sirat mustaqim, if I take it for the messenger, I can confirm that yes, actually, the message in the Quran that is brought by the Prophet ﷺ is the straightest, clear-cut answer for those questions. If I take it for me as a human, saying that you are pursuing a straight path, the way I can take this verse is my humanity. As a human, I am given with the tools that's going to, that can help me be on the right path. This was one way to take it. Another way to take it was, if I'm open to message, which will come in the following verses, and if the things that have happened in my life in the past, I might have done mistakes, but if I reevaluate my life trajectory, no matter how many curves it had, maybe I had some circles, and after 5 years, I found myself where I began 5 years ago. It might have such circles. It might not be seeming to have like a straight path structure. But if I think about it and ask the question, what is my purpose in here? And why did I do these things? Did I not gain anything? Is it all of a loss? If I take lessons from my mistakes, why I did such a thing, why was it a mistake? Was it a mistake in the first place? Then to the extent that I reevaluate all those actions in my past, I will also realize that actually they were part of my training for today. And me repenting for my mistakes is also part of my training. And then I would consider all those skewed ways that took me to who I am today, because they might have turned into an opportunity to realize my shortcomings, and then realizing my faultiness, turn to source of my existence and ask for forgiveness. In this sense, I would realize that actually it was a straight path. But in here, the thing to pay attention to is, this is when I look at past. It's not for when I look at future and I say, well, no matter what sort of a stupid mistake I'm going to do, it's going to be within my destiny. So this is not a proper way of evaluating destiny. So this is not what we understood from verse number 4. But in general, when I look at past with a sound mind, I can see that whatever has happened, despite my choices, with my choices or without my choices, whatever is being given to me, whatever is created was meant to be like this if I pay attention and try to read how to make sense of them. Now, since we discussed about this before, I will leave it with that much in here, but also when we are going to study verse number 11 today, we are going to come back to that. Now, verse number 5, Tanzil al-Aziz al-Rahim. So by virtue of what is being bestowed from on high by the Almighty, the dispenser of grace. So in here, again, this revelation is being reminded to me or presented to me as it's coming from on high, which implies that the message is seeing, like, it's not local. It's coming from a perspective which sees before and after, which sees here in Philadelphia and the other side of the world. So beyond space and time, this message is coming from a global perspective, unlike my local perspective of space and time. I'm only concerned about my personal relationships, which I am quite limited in terms of this vision, space-wise, time-wise. But it is a tanzil, so it's coming from on high, but also its source is Al-Aziz Al-Rahim. So the Creator is presenting himself to me as someone who has this, is almighty, who has dignity, and also who is merciful. So the balance between the two is so important. I might become careless if I don't realize the source being almighty, and I might become extremely, get shocked within the fear and get paralyzed if I don't realize that it is coming from a merciful source. So this verse number 5, is reminding me of the balance between the two. So then these first 5 verses was making this sort of an introduction. It provided some background, but then verse number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is going to tell us a different aspect. Because so far, what have we seen? We have seen about the message, the revelation, and the messenger, the two being mentioned. Now, the purpose of message and messenger is being reminded. لِتُنذِرَ قَوْمًا مَا أُنذِرَ آبَاؤُهُمْ فَهُمْ غَافِلُونَ. This message is revealed so that you may warn people whose forefathers had not been warned, and who therefore are unaware, within parentheses of the meaning of right and wrong. لَقَدْ حَقَّ الْقَوْلُ عَلَى أَكْثَرِهِمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Indeed, the word of God's condemnation is bound to come true against most of them, for they will not believe. So when we were discussing these verses, we studied this in the sense that, okay, this revelation comes to, for what? So it comes to a group of people. We didn't take this part in a certain historical context, because reminder comes to people, if we take it as messenger, Muhammad ﷺ, messenger comes to people to remind them about what is right, what is wrong. But in here, it's talking about a mindset which says we are not going to accept because our forefathers were not warned. And this is a general theme throughout the Quran. So I act as I am acting because this is how culturally we have been acting. So it must be the true way. And when the messenger comes, I simply say, well, what you're saying is like innovative. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right on the basis that we haven't heard such a thing before. Not on the basis that it doesn't make sense, but on the basis that, well, this is something new. So therefore I am close to it. I'm not going to consider your message. And this is what verse number 7 is saying. If I am at such an attitude, no matter what sort of a message it's going to be, فَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ, so they will not believe, because from the very beginning, I am putting my position. I am declaring that if something is new, and if this thing is contrary to what my forefathers have been believing in, then I'm not even going to consider it. So one way to take this was historically in terms of me, my parents, and my ancestors. But there's another way for that as well, which is me being a man of age 35 years. I would say, well, I'm not going to change my ways. This is how I have been for the last 35 years. And if a messenger comes to me, which now we are expanding the meaning of messenger a little bit more. It might be Messenger Muhammad والسلام, his message comes to me, or it might be something happens to me. Everything in this existence is a message from my creator. Let's take a dramatic example of some accident happens or a beloved one dies. Do I take it as a message or take it as a warning saying that you need to change your ways because I'm realizing that I was wrong at some point? How do I respond to this message? Do I say that doesn't make sense because this is something that happens internally generally? If I take it as a message or messenger, then I will need to change my ways, which means I need to just, as if 30 years of my life is waste, which I cannot accept and I don't want to admit. Therefore, from the very beginning, I close myself to that message. And this is what these verses are saying in a sense. Verse number 8, إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا فِي أَعْنَاقِهِمْ أَغْلَالًا فَهِيَ إِلَى الْأَذْقَانِ فَهُمْ مُقْمَحُونَ وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ سَدًّا وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ سَدًّا فَغْشَيْنَاهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. These two verses, behold, around their necks we have put shackles reaching up to their chins so that their heads are forced up. And we have set a barrier before them and a barrier behind them, and we have enshrouded them in veils so that they cannot see. So this is a very interesting imagery of how I would be if I put myself in this position, because I'm categorically against messenger in this case. And those verses are describing what I am actually, as if each and every decision I make to reject messengers and message, it is becoming a shackle to my neck, which makes my head raise up, which means I'm becoming more and more arrogant, but also that it is sort of becoming irreversible. It's shackle. It's not like, well, since this is a decision starting and ending within me, I can turn back at any moment. It's not being that easy. And I practically experienced this as I keep making wrong decisions. I become like a staunch believer of my wrong decisions. I don't want to step back more and more after each wrong decision. Each and every time I reject a message being a message, I am becoming more and more blind towards such message. And in verse number 9, it's saying that as if there's a barrier before them and barrier behind them. And while we were discussing this verse, we said that this is as if now I am getting stuck in time. I only have moments, the moment that I am living in. There is no future for me. There is no past for me, because life becomes pretty much like, if you like, a two-dimensional. There's no depth in it, or even a single dimensional in this case, because only the moment exists for me. If there's no message, then there is no meaning in this existence. There's no purpose of life. What is left for me is the moment that I'm living in. And all the moments that are past, no matter if they are joy or they are pain, they are gone. And I am regretful about my past. And my future is dark with all my worries. And yet the only thing I have is the moment that I'm living in. So if I keep rejecting the message and the messenger in this existence, making the existence meaningless, I end up living in a grave-like moment. And the last part of the verse says, we have enshrouded them in veils so that they cannot see. So as a result, this is what I end up having. I'm blinding myself with the moment that I have, and whatever joy, because this is what I run after. I'm trying to maximize the joys, but I cannot see neither past nor future. It's total darkness for me. And then verse number 10 says, وَسَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Thus it is all one to them. It's all the same for them, whether you warn them or you don't warn them, they will not believe. And this is a descriptive language in here. If I am in such a condition, since from the very beginning I decided not to listen to the messenger, this is becoming my end result. They will not believe. So otherwise, it's not like, well, I don't believe because God damned me to, or ordained me not to believe. What can I do? It's not this sort of a description. No, I chose not to listen to the messenger. Therefore, I ended up in the position that is being described in here. So we discussed up to here. We started discussing verse number 11 last week, but today's discussion is going to be about this verse and the next verse mainly. So far, message and messenger are mentioned. Then also, who does not listen or who does not benefit from the message and messenger are also described. Now, verse number 11. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. You can warn only those who is willing to take the reminder to heart or who follows the reminder. وخشي الرحمن بالغيب, and who stands in awe of the most merciful, most gracious, although he is beyond the reach of human perception. فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. So to those, then give the glad tidings of God's forgiveness and of a most excellent reward. So I'll just pose a few questions in here, and then I'll pause and would like to listen to your comments. So what attracts my attention in this verse is, now it starts talking about who messenger can warn. And it talks about those who take a reminder to their heart or who follows reminder. So what do we understand from this part? This is one chunk to focus on in this verse. Those who follow reminder, the reminder. This is one part to talk about. Second part, khashya ar-Rahman bil-ghayb. So khashya in here is like, sometimes it's translated as fear of God or awe of God. So what does it mean that you can only warn those who have this awe, like, I mean, this is sort of a feeling, this khashya is sort of a feeling that you will have towards your mother. Like you love your mother, but you know that if you are going to be naughty, your mother is going to be sort of harsh with you, as in the previous verses, Aziz ar-Rahim. So the revelation was coming from Almighty and Merciful. So towards Almighty and Merciful, you will have like this love towards mercy, but also fear or some sort of seriousness, I would say, towards Aziz, the Almighty. So khashiyah is the mixture of these two feelings. So what is the relationship between being open to message and having khashiyah? I'm now using the word khashiyah, and given the explanation that I was trying to give, and having khashiyah towards the merciful, although he is beyond reach. What does that mean? This is the second question. And then the third part is going to be, why is there this mentioning of forgiveness and then reward? So these are my three questions. Since I have been talking for almost 25 minutes, I will appreciate if you would like to share your comments about any of those points or anything beyond that. I'm looking for hands. No hands yet. Okay, until somebody raises their hand. Okay. Okay, there we go. Brother Birkan, please go ahead. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum and Jazakallah khair for great introduction and great discussion so far. So one thing I want to share about the verse is that, sorry for my disturbing video, but I'm using a mobile device. So anyway, sorry. Okay. One thing I want to share about the verse is that there's like, I guess we can take this awe or fear of God as being honest to yourself. Like with the previous verses, we studied an alternative in which you see yourself as like a tiny creator. You think you have some power over things, like you attribute things to yourself. I have this mind, I have this ability to speak, I have all these ideas, and so on and so forth. But on the opposite, being honest to yourself is being aware of everything that you lack, everything that you are missing, and realizing the fact that everything is given to you. You don't own anything. But again, everything is given to you. So you are missing things, you are weak, you are impotent, you are needy. This is your reality. And only thing you can do is just destroying things. Like everything is being created beautifully, and through your free will, sometimes you choose to block this beauty. So this is all you can do, at least when you are honest to yourself. This is how you see yourself. And as such, in such a state, after such a realization, when you think about your relationship with the creator of all this beauty, you have this the awe or the fear that you are doing something wrong. And this feeling, like what it does, as you gave the example of mother, this feeling takes you in seeking refuge with this creator, who is beyond you, beyond everything. So it gives you this feeling, the awe or fear. It leads you towards your creator, your Rabb, your Lord. You need his mercy. You need his forgiveness, hence, the mention of forgiveness at the very end. But anyway, like what I want to say is that the fear of God, I guess in this context, is realizing that you have been in mistake almost your entire life as a human being, attributing things to yourself. And then realizing that you need forgiveness, and realizing that the door for forgiveness, the door of mercy, is beyond you, beyond universe. So that's what I wanted to share. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. So I'll just summarize what you said with my words. Correct me if I'm wrong. So then if I am cognizant of the fact that I might have flaws. Actually, I'm a mistaken person. I did things wrong, or I am in need of being guided, which means, in your words, I am needy. So I am not like I'm a bulletproof Iron Man sort of a person. No, like in the literal sense of Iron Man, the guy who was very arrogant because he is smarter than everybody else. And he doesn't need guidance from anyone, not like that. But actually, I am a person who makes mistakes, and I am in need of being warned. And there must be somebody out there who is actually, even before that, I see that in my body, when I breathe an air molecule, I don't know how this air molecule is going to end up either in my hair or in my nail or in my heart, but definitely this air molecule is being just guided to where it is supposed to go. So the one that guides this air molecule, likewise anything else in my body, should provide guidance to me as well. Because in this life, sometimes I feel like I am so lost. So am I aware of the fact that I am so lost? And also that my maker, the one that guides this air molecule to its proper location in my body, is going to provide me guidance so that I'm not going to be lost, but rather I'm going to find my way in this existence. So am I open to this possibility? And if such a message comes to me, am I going to be able to say that I admit my neediness and now I'm going to follow this guidance? And by the way, this is not something easy, especially when it comes to following another person. This is why I guess this chapter is taking messengers, human messengers, at its core. Because following a human is tough because, like, why that person? Why is that person better than me? These are very common questions that comes to our minds because it's against my ego. My ego, it kicks in. So this many taba'a part, this ittaba'a following, is an important thing in here. But in order to be able to do that, I need to admit my neediness. And in this neediness, now coming back to the second part, khashya ar-Rahman bil ghayb. So although I am needy, who is going to fulfill my needs? So the merciful one is going to provide me with all my needs. Let it be my material needs, let it be my emotional needs, or the guidance that I'm in need of. So knowing my position in this existence, knowing my limitations and my desires and my lack of capacity to fulfill those desires, I am within this awe, I am expecting this answer from Rahman, from the merciful one. If I'm in such a mindset, then I'm open to guidance. Otherwise, I feel like I don't need guidance. And I just want to emphasize this part a little bit more because especially if you are raised up in a, let's say, religious community or a Muslim coming from a Muslim background, it's generally taken for granted that, yes, our prophet is the best of the prophets and this and that. And maybe I take it for granted that I already believe in the messenger. What's the big deal about that? But as we will see in the following verses, what does it mean to follow a message and a messenger? Am I really following the messenger? To what extent am I taking the messenger serious? These questions I need to truly answer, because otherwise it might be like, yeah, I'm not denying messenger, but what do I mean practically by that? Brother Birkan, please go ahead, you raised hand.
Just one, like a tiny addition to what you just said, the final point, like how much we take messengers serious. We can also ask the question, like within the context of these specific words, how much I take the message as a reminder. So it says إنما تنذر, right? Like it's a reminder. It's not something I have I haven't known before. It reminds me something that I knew already, like my weakness, my neediness, my mistakes, my need for mercy, my need for forgiveness. All these things make sense when I take it as a reminder. Somebody comes and tells me that because you have a project deadline, you know that why you are wasting your time by eating ice cream. Like you should do it, right? I know that something is coming for me. I know I'm in a situation which needs to be changed, but I just deny it. I just cover it. And message comes and reminds me of my situation. So why this is important? Because we usually do not read Quran, at least the big chunk of the Quran, as a reminder. We read it as it's giving us information about some other people. Like this verse is about Jewish people. This verse is about Christians. This verse about the unbelievers. This is another verse about who pretend to be believing but not believing hypocrites. How a message which talks about some other people can be a reminder for me. But when I read it as it's speaking to me personally and speaking about my mistakes, my unbelief, my hypocrisy, then it becomes a reminder for me. Jazakallah khair.
Yes, Jazakallah khair. And another reason that I don't want to take it as a reminder is, and from outside, because I don't want to be warned. There are two terms in here, being warned and taking it as a reminder, because I feel like I can figure it out by myself. Or humanity, we can figure it out. We don't need to receive a message from whatever, from beyond, unseen. Come on. I mean, we are able to go to the outer space, and in a near future, we will land on Mars. So who needs reminder from unseen? This might be my mindset. And I guess more importantly, I am finding it too hard personally to take both for Quran and also for the experiences in my life, taking them as messages for myself, especially if it is showing how weak I am. Because I have a self-image of a man of integrity, a person who makes decisions by thinking about them and just weighing rights and wrongs and then acting accordingly. But anything that challenges this self-image, I don't want to buy into that because it makes me feel bad. So this is why I am closing myself to the message. But in here, it is saying that you can only warn those who are open to receive a reminder and have this awe towards Rahman, the merciful, although he is not beyond his, although he is beyond his man's reach. And then when it comes to فَبَشِّرْهُ بِمَغْفِرَةٍ, so give the glad tidings of forgiveness. This forgiveness part is beautiful because although I know that I am weak and this self-image of like very elevated my self-image, and I am afraid to realize that it's a lie, although deep inside I know that it's a lie. But as if this verse is saying that if you admit your fault and open yourself to message, you are going to be forgiven, meaning that you're going to have your faultiness is going to be erased, meaning that it's not going to be a fault for you. You will realize that it's through this fault, this neediness, I realized something beyond, like bil ghaib, because the eternal one is going to become visible to me. Otherwise, the mercy that I experience in myself or the wisdom that I have, these are all limited things which are going to die with me. But rather, as I confess my neediness, I will find the absolutely beautiful one, absolutely merciful one, absolutely wise one, which is which will make this as maghfirah, like a forgiveness for me. Because it's not a, although I used to see it as a weakness before, now it becomes my capital. My neediness, my weakness becomes my capital. It's not something bad anymore for me. And then Ajrin Kareem is something that follows. Your fault is becoming your capital. So I guess Maghfirah and Ajrin Kareem in this sense, like a most excellent reward. One, the thing that you thought to be faulty becomes a reward for you. Is just combining the two words. So if there is no comments about this word, or is there any comments, questions about this word, this verse? Okay, so here is verse number 12. And if any comment that you would like to make about the past, also feel free to raise your hands. Now the chapter brings a apparently unrelated topic into discussion now. Because so far for the 11 verses, he has been talking about message, messenger, who is not open to message and who is open to message. But now in verse number 12, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُمْ وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. Verily, we shall indeed bring the dead back to life, and we shall record. I'm going to read this translation a little bit different. وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا, this is in the present tense, and we record whatever they have sent ahead, because the whole sentence is in present tense. Sorry for the translation here. I should have corrected that. إِنَّا نَحْنُ نُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Indeed, we bring the dead back to life. This is something that we keep doing always. We indeed bring dead back to life, and we record whatever they have sent ahead and the traces of which they have left behind. For of all things do we take account in a record clear. So this is a very interesting verse. Now it started talking about resurrection, or taking the day of judgment, as if dead being taken into life, and recording of what I have done in the past and what I am sending to the future. These are all being recorded. So what is the point of bringing this in here, do you think? Because there is no such mention of day of judgment or anything of this sort so far. And also bringing from verse number 13, it's going to start giving us an example of messengers being denied by some people. So as if this verse is just hanging in there, isolated. Why? So as a general initial question, do you see any relationship in this verse and message and messengers and being open to message? Waiting for your help. I am seeing a lot of names today, mashallah. Any comments are more than welcome, or questions. And yeah, you might have questions. You might say that, yeah, I agree. This seems to be out of place here. I guess we need to be courageous in this sense to say that, yeah, it seems to be out of place, if it seems to be out of place. No comments? Okay, so while you are thinking, I will try to give some initial thoughts. As I was trying to say, this verse is in present tense. Although actually the translator's perspective gives us how we might read such verses, because is resurrection something that happens, that is going to happen in the future? Like, look at the picture in the slides now. Isn't this a resurrection, for instance, that keeps happening? And what's happening in this resurrection? So in that seed, a record, something was recorded, if you like, history of previous doings of another plant. This one looks like a bean. So a bean from the last summer, life history, let's take it as that, life history of that bean was recorded in the bean. Life history of that bean plant was recorded in the seed, in that bean. And in the next springtime, when you bury this apparently dead book, which is the seed, under the soil, in the next spring, we observe, as shown in the picture, that the seed is being resurrected. Whatever is written is now being put in front of our eyes. So this is something that keeps happening every year, every moment, actually. This sort of resurrection is taking place. Every new moment is a new creation. And this is, I guess, understandable when we refer to, we shall, now that I am again going back to the verse, we bring the dead back to life, and we record whatever they have sent ahead to the future and the traces of which they have left behind. So yes, the previous year's doings are being recorded. And this is what we are observing in this example, for instance, in here. The plant, whatever was written, is now being resurrected. But what does it mean that whatever I sent forward, future, being written, what does that mean? What does that mean that it is being taken into a record? Yes, Brother Birkan, please go ahead.
So regarding, whatever I send is being written, the verse is talking about both my past and my future, right? We record whatever they have sent ahead and the traces which, or whatever they have left behind. So both direction. And it says we record them. We record them in a clear record. We take account in a clear record. So the way I see this verse is that the verse is telling me that everything, both your past and your future, is under control. Nothing is being given to pure chance or blind forces of nature. Everything is under control. I'm writing down whatever will happen to you, whatever happened to you. It's in my book. It's being recorded. So you are in good hands, if you take. This is so important, and how this is related to previous verses you were asking. Sorry, I spent some time with my daughter at that time. I couldn't answer. But I guess this is highly relevant to what we discussed before, because like with the previous verse, we said there is this door of mercy, the door of forgiveness being opened in front of me. The God will forgive you. This is the good news for you. And now he says, yes, the forgiveness is there because your past is under our control. Whatever you do, it's whatever you went through was under our control. So if you realize your mistakes, if you realize your neediness, then the forgiveness is there for you. And do not think that with your past, all the mistakes you've gone through, do not think that it's over for you. There is no enough mercy to forgive me, because we can even give life to death. We can open a new page for you. We can take your dying past and turn into a living future for you. At the same time, it says your future is also is under our control. It is written by us. That means the darkness that you see when you look at the future can be resolved, can be illuminated by us. So in previous verses, we said in my current situation, I am only concerned with the moment. I don't see what is behind. I don't see what is in front of me. God was telling me that there's a barrier in front of me. There's a barrier behind me. I'm not able to see other than my current moment. Because to me, the future is nothing but darkness, and my past doesn't even exist anymore. But this verse tells me, no, there is like we give life to that. So your past can be a living thing for you. It's not dead. It is preserved in us. So you didn't lose your past. It's with us. Also, the darkness you see ahead, the future, is in our control. We see it, and we can control it. So it is illuminated by my Lord. So this two-way, it's, I guess, very important to me as a human, both my past and the future. Forgiveness and also illumination is so important for me. And I think this is how this verse is related to the previous ones.
Thank you. So, yes, so far within the previous 11 verses, we talked about guidance. So guidance, and I said I am lost in this existence, I am lost. And as Brother Birkan was saying, I might put myself in a condition that I get lost in the moment. Past is dark, future is dark. And while I am in this position at the moment, thinking that the only thing that is alive is the moment, this verse is reminding me where the revelation, where the guidance is coming from. It is coming from a source in which records the past, meaning that past is not dead, and future is not dead either. The one that knows the past and that knows the future is giving life to that moment. Because what do we mean by giving life at the moment? Do I mean simply that, or how do I feel like this moment is coming into being? Is it by chance, or since I was existing in the previous moment. I mean, look at this picture in the screen, for instance, now. The plant in this form, how does it come into being? When I ask such a question, what comes to your mind as an answer to that question? Do you find yourself to say that, well, the plant was in this previous form, and as a consequence of, or as a natural, quote unquote, natural next step of this form is that form? Is this how I understand it? Or in that book of the seed, this stage was written, that second stage was written, and also the third stage was written. But they are all separate existences. So this second stage that now I'm looking at is being given life in front of my eyes. So, and it is right in the middle of the third and the first. So the one who creates the plant in the second stage within that order can only be the one who knows that past stage and the one that knows this future stage. Because it's not that in the second stage it's a totally unrelated being. And this is what we keep observing in the existence, right? There's a smooth and wise change in the existence. To give a funny but practical example, I sleep tonight and tomorrow morning I don't wake up having a totally different face. So I am being given a face which is pretty much like going to be a face like this. And when I say that, well, of course, I mean, why shall my face change for tomorrow? I guess this would be my response. But does it make any sense? Because tomorrow morning is going to be a new existence. And it cannot be that since today I exist, I must exist tomorrow. There's no such thing. Tomorrow is going to be given existence, using the terminology of this verse, is going to be given life independently. And the one that will give that life to my face tomorrow must be the one who knows the past and who knows the future. So how does this verse now then bring me a message? Because this is a guidance. So how is this verse a guidance to me? How does it help me? So with this verse, it is giving me, and again, not taking it as a claim, but just as stating what can be verified in the existence. And this is what I can verify in the existence, just looking at the image right in front of our eyes. Past and future is written, is recorded. Everything is within an order. Now, when I apply it to my life, yeah, I observe that this is the case with the seed. This is the case with the solar system and its order. This is the case with the particles in my body. How about me in this life? Where am I fitting in this picture? Given that I have my free choices, choosing is a different issue. But other than choice, what do I have? The things that I choose are, I don't have the power to give existence to them, to create them. But the Creator is saying that we are the one who give life to dead. So all your choices, all your past and future, I am the one that gives existence, that gives life to it. So you are in this existence, your role is to, how am I going to make sense of this existence? This is my question. This is my concern in here. Sort of my choices are very much embedded in there. Am I going to admit that I am needy and I am being provided, as in the second group that was being mentioned so far? Or am I going to say that, no, my fathers were right, so I am, and my path is the right path, and I'm not open to any alternative explanation in this existence? I, as a human, or my parents, or my mankind, like I am, we are able to find truth by ourselves. We don't need any meaning other than what we already have, if this is my attitude. So this is where my choice is going to be utilized. And this verse is as if saying that we are the one that gives life to the dead. We are the one that is creating. Don't you see this? Don't you see the seed at its stages of creation? Are you creating it? Or the seed comes into existence by itself? Or is it the sun that gives existence to that? No. The one who gives existence to this seed must be the one who created the last spring, last summer, winter, and the one that can bring in next summer and spring. So such a one brings you this message to show you or enlighten you of your past and your future. Because while we were reading this verse, this reminded us of strategy games. If you guys have ever played strategy games, you fall into an island, let's say, or some territory, and the rest of the map is all dark. You only see the surroundings of where your initial settlers are. But then you send scouts and you're trying to open up the map. So this is pretty much how we are in this life. We are at the moment, we cannot see past, future. We have worries from future. We have regrets from past. Everywhere is dark. So the Creator is saying that I am the one that put you in the island of moment. And yes, your past and future seem start to you, but I am the one that gives life to those dark moments or dead moments. And everything is within a order. Don't you see that? I have been recording everything and I have recorded everything. The one that are to come are coming within an order, highlighting that everything had already been, from observer's point of view, recorded. So what is left to me is to observe this existence and utilize my choices in the proper way to make sense of this existence as admitting my truth, rather than going against it with my big claims, as it was being mentioned in the previous verses. So with that, I would like to stop. Any comments or questions so far? So while you guys are thinking, I would like to make a just final summary of where we are, because beginning from next week, now we are going to start an example, a parable, because it looks like the first 12 verses set the stage. It talked about the message. It started with Wal Quran al Hakim. It talked about message and then brought messenger into the picture, and then talked about who listens to the message and who doesn't listen to the message. And then started talking about this resurrection. And resurrection can be taken as the moment, at the very moment that I'm living in. So Quran is bringing this concept of life being given to dead to the moment. But also this verse also calls me to responsibility of my choices at the same time. Because if there's going to be a resurrection, also this is another meaning of resurrection, I'm going to die. So I need to be more careful about how I utilize my free will, my choices. So this was the main gist of our 3 weeks discussion and the introduction of this chapter. And now beginning with verse number 13, we will start talking about messengers. وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا أَصْحَابَ الْقَرْيَةِ إِذْ جَاءَهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ, and give them a parable, the story of how the people of a township behaved when our message bearers came unto them. So inshallah, let's stop here. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.